Bro, AI is here to take my job. Yo, is there still scope for developers and designers now that AI is here? Yo, will I have to rethink my entire career? Because at this point, I am scared of AI. I don't know what it's gonna do. Hi, my name is Abhinav, and in this video, I'm gonna show you what exactly AI tools today are, what are the misconceptions some people have around it, and why a lot of fears that you hear about are irrational. And number 3, how you can use AI to give yourself a competitive advantage to boost your workflow. So let's get started. And what I need you to do before we jump in is hit that subscribe button. The world we live in today is rapidly accelerating. And if this is a field that you're interested in, we have a lot more like this coming up. So right now, hit the subscribe button. Waiting. Okay, now let's get into it. Number 1, what exactly is AI, right? AI is a field of study, artificial intelligence, and this field of study is not new. This has been around and there have been developments for the last couple of decades. Like I remember there have been AI papers that I came across that were as old as the 1980s. However, today we're seeing a surge of AI applications. The technology itself is not a small part of some other product that you use, it's the product. Most of us have already, for the last 5 years, been interacting with AIs at a very deep level. The news feeds that serve us relevant information, whether that's on YouTube right here or on your social media platforms, that is an AI, a machine learning model that learns from your actions, your behaviors, and then uses that to fine-tune certain parameters and return results that are more likely to be engaging. When you're on Amazon and when you're scrolling and you come across, hey, other users who bought this are also likely to buy, and it gives you these suggestions, that is a machine learning model that's being played there. Similarly, when you're using your phone and you point at something with something like Google Lens and it recognizes that object, that is computer vision. But all that stuff has not really created the same kind of fear that we see today with AI. And what's the reason? The reason is we are finally reached a point where these are now consumer products, right? The technology itself is not a small part of some other product that you use, it's the product. So with that out of the way, I hope you now have a better understanding of what this technology is. The misconception that a lot of people have is AI is going to take my job, or AI is going to make a bunch of fields redundant. The reason people seem to think so is because AI, artificial intelligence, is getting more and more intelligent, right? When me as an individual, as a creator, when I use one of these AI tools that I'm going to show you in this video later today, stick around for that. When I use these tools, it augments my creativity, right? AI is artificial intelligence, but you can also think of it as augmented intelligence. Humans, we have been creating tools to augment our capabilities, whether that's fire to be able to use and store energy, or whether that's the wheel to move things around.
Well, we think it boils down to when a tool feels like an extension of your mind. An extension of your mind. So why is this important? Well, if you look at it, the iPhone is a tool, right? It's a hand tool for information and communication. And it works by marrying our tactile senses with our sense of vision. But if you think about it, it's actually part of a long line of hand tools extending back thousands of years. The tool on the left here was used to extract bone marrow 150,000 years ago, extending the sharpness of what our fingers could do. So we've been making hand tools for some time now. And the most amazing thing is that our hands have actually evolved and adapted alongside our tools. We've evolved a huge concentration of muscles, nerves, blood vessels that can perform the most delicate gestures and sense the lightest of touches.
This phone that is an extension of pretty much our body helps us to do things that biologically by ourselves we might not be able to do. There's a Steve Jobs quote which likens computers and technology and says that it's like a bicycle for the mind.
It gets back to the question of what is a personal computer again. Again, another analogy. There was an article in Scientific American in the early 70s which compared the efficiency of locomotion for various species of things on the planet. In other words, they measured how much energy it took for a bird to get from point A to point B compared with the energy it took a fish to get the same distance, and a goat and a person and all sorts of other things. And they ranked them. And it turns out the condor won. Condor was the most efficient, and man came in with a rather unimpressive showing about a third of the way down the list. Somewhat disappointing. But someone there had the insight to test the efficiency of man riding a bicycle. And man riding a bicycle was twice as good as the condor, all the way off the end of the list. And what it really illustrated was man's ability as a tool maker to fashion a tool that can amplify an inherent ability that he has. And that's exactly what we think we're doing. We think we're basically fashioning a 21st century bicycle here, which can amplify an inherent intellectual ability that man has and really take care of a lot of drudgery to free people to do much more creative work.
What exactly does that mean? What it means is, in the same way that you can use a bicycle to use less energy and cover a long amount of distance rather than just running, right? That is not a capability you were born with. The bicycle as a tool enables you to do a lot more. Similarly, today we're at a phase where these new technologies, which are still quite early, have great potential to augment our intelligence, to be a bicycle for the mind. Now, all of technology in general has been helping with that, but this is a new generation. So there's going to be a lot more possibilities that were not previously possible. So does that mean it takes your job away? No, it doesn't. But what it does mean is the smartest people get smarter, right? In general, when you use technology, you are able to do a lot more compared to somebody who does not use technology, right? A very simple example of that would be in your job. Imagine if you could not use all the tools and products and services that you use today. Whether that's Google Sheets, imagine just actually making physical logs. Whether that's Slack or email communication, imagine having to actually send a messenger with the message you want to send. Or imagine just not being able to remote work, right? There is a lot of productivity and economic unlock that technologies enable. So with something like this, yes, the people who are the smartest, the most creative, now have this augmented intelligence partner, a creative partner that can work along with them with their prompts and enhance and boost their output, do a lot more than was previously possible. But the reason a lot of people feel like this might take their job away is because what this means is that one person can now do a lot more. So the people who are, let's just say, ranking people like this, the people who are doing just, let's just say, the bare minimum, their job is gone. Why? Because you do not now need a dedicated person just to do that. Like, that is now available very easily. A quick example of this, I know a lot of freelancers, right? Not personally, but I know they exist. 10 years ago, there was a category on Upwork, on Odesk, on these freelancing websites, which was removing backgrounds from images. Now, that today, you can pretty much within Photoshop just use an AI application that just kind of removes backgrounds. Similarly, you can use tools like remove.bg. So designers whose entire job, who found this one thing that worked, which is removing backgrounds, and just kept exploiting that, they no longer have a job. They now have to find other things to do. Similarly, today we're at the phase where if you are a beginner and if your knowledge is very, very basic, these tools, the core technology of which is called large language models, are this kind of collection of human intelligence. So you, starting out in a field with very limited intelligence, might have a hard time knowing as much or executing as fast as a large language model. And a similar example I want to just give you is you in a parallel universe, you as somebody who knows a lot of facts, right? Maybe you were a quizzer, you know a lot about the world. You're gonna have a hard time competing with Google in terms of how much it knows, how quickly it updates this information, as well as how quick it is, right? Similarly, large language models, this is a new thing on the internet. There are large language models for text that you can interact with through apps like ChatGPT, right, by OpenAI. There are also large language models for images. So you can now create and generate these images using just a couple prompts, and it kind of queries this large language model and kind of generates from what its form of intelligence is a brand new image using these hundreds of thousands of millions of images in that data set, right? So that's a little bit about how it works. But let's now jump into some real applications. I'm going to show you some of the things that I have thought to try with it. Now, of course, this technology is not that new, but I've already seen a scenario where now I want to use ChatGPT, I want to use Midjourney in specific parts. Now, this is work that I would have done myself, right? This is not something I would have hired a person for. So no jobs lost as such. But if I were ever to get an intern whose entire job was maybe writing, that is probably not something that I will do anymore. I will use one of these tools for it. 3 tools that I think you should be using right now. There's going to be a lot more of these kind of tools, but I want to show you some examples. Number 1, I want to show you DALL-E, right? So I've logged in here. Now this is an image generator. I'm also going to show you Midjourney. I was using Midjourney for generating a bunch of stuff. This is in fact for a website that I'm designing. This is a hypothetical website that I'm designing for a Garba event, right? Not real, it's a part of an assignment. I wanted to show how these tools can be used in web design. But this was me literally generating, number 1, some ideas. So starting from the top here, I did try a web design for a Garba landing page. Now this, maybe it gives me some layout ideas, but I didn't think these were great, right? However, I did start noticing elements. So for example, these things here, these elements on top here, having a large image. Now these are some ideas that I was like, okay, maybe the top section, I could try something like this, right? So I'm using it as a generative partner, as a creative partner that can suggest me things. But the suggestions are only going to be as good as my prompts, because I have to tell it what I want, right? Unlike a human, an AI right now cannot just do things by itself. Why? Because it has no incentive to, it has no motive to. Versus here, when I ask it stuff, then it's going to suggest things, right? So here I was generating images that I can use actually copyright free in my web designs. You will also see some 3D ones. Now, again, what I like about using these large language models, right, like Midjourney and DALL-E, is that it really surprises you every once in a while. Like this is a very dramatic, nice looking shot. Now it's not perfect, but it's definitely way better than just having an idea in my head. Like I am not a 3D designer or illustrator, so I would have probably not done this. I would have probably gone, for designing this page, I would have gone the traditional route of maybe using stock photos or imagery, or in this case, this hypothetical client, I would ask them, can you give me images from your previous events that you had? Now, of course, I will still do all of that, but I also have these that I can really use in between. So that is Midjourney, right? And I can show you a little bit how it works. Right now, I am DMing it, right? So this is because I've got a paid Midjourney account, which lets me DM whatever I want in private over here. However, you can definitely sign up for Midjourney, and what it does, it adds you to the Midjourney Discord. And here you will have all of these channels. Now it's a little chaotic, but that's what you get if you want to use the free plan as of now. What you would do is you would head into one of these newbie rooms, and here you would say /imagine, and you would give it your prompt, right? So I would say /imagine and then give my prompt. So let me do that in DMs. But in general, I also want to show you this can be a great way to see what other people are doing, right? This gives you ideas, and it directly lets you see, hey, they tried this gave a good result versus this gave something that was not so good, right? So definitely use this and save inspirations of some of these prompts and try to figure out what these flags are, right? Now, this is a new tool. So you want to learn what the intricacies of these tools are and how exactly they work. So real quick, showing you how it works in here. So let me try this in DALL-E just to show you a little bit of a comparison, right? These were some of the results for this prompt. I'm going to try again over here. One interesting, meanwhile, as we're waiting for this, one interesting analogy that I came across when learning a little bit more about large language models. Wow, this is really bad. Let me remove this dramatic movement, black background, intricate details on dress. Oh my God. Let me try that again. A cinematic full body shot. When you put these in, it's not that these images exist inside DALL-E. What it does is it uses these parameters through its model and tries to make something for you. An interesting way I like to think about this, and I don't know where I came across this, is these large language models, you can kind of think of it as a composite of every single image that exists in the world. And now with this, typing a prompt, you are kind of taking a photograph, right? It's like photography where this image, not in the same way that it exists, but when you do a Google search, you are searching for something that actually exists on the website, exists on the internet, sorry. And here you are typing in something that doesn't exist but is generated for you as you type it in. Now clearly you can see these are not great at all. Midjourney had way better examples. So personally, I actually don't even use DALL-E. Although DALL-E is the more popular one, I've heard a lot more people talk about it. Midjourney is actually the one that returns better results. A quick note here, as of this video, Midjourney is on V4, version 4. So you should, with your prompts, return --V4, right? Pass this, right? At the end of your prompt, add V4. Because let me show you what Midjourney would look like otherwise, right? On V3. Q2 here is a quality prompt. So what I'm saying is I want this generated with higher quality. By default, it's Q1. Now, just to show you an example of what this would look like without V4, it would probably look something like this, right? Which is, yeah, it's something, but it's clearly not something I would use on a real website for a Garba event. There you go. So this is how it works. It slowly renders your prompt here. It shows you your progress. It can be interesting seeing this because sometimes the final result looks very different from what you're seeing here. So anyways, folks, that is Midjourney, right? This is the more visual side of things. This is how it stands today. This is V3, not good at all. Probably just about the same level as DALL-E. If I gave this entire prompt, maybe it would do better. Meanwhile, I want to show you the newest one. This is one that I'm really excited about. This is ChatGPT. And this, I thought, has a lot more potential for being very disruptive for designers. So for example, right here, I'm going to say, I am designing a website for a Garba event. The goal, let me just make this big here. The goal is to sell tickets, share information, and get people excited about this year's event. Write me the PRD, right? A PRD here is a product requirements doc. I could also say write me a design brief, but you can try both. Write me the PRD for a one-pager website for this event. This PRD should include possible personas, right? User personas. It should mention the sections that the website has. And I also need copy text that describes the tradition of Garba and United, which is the company that has been doing this for 20 years now. too detailed. Well, let me try that once more. Okay. I'm gonna retry. ChatGPT was like, no fucking way, bro. Not at all. I'm not gonna do this. Not in the mood. Not in the mood. अभी lunch time है, बाद में आना. So not so different from an intern then. Just kidding. So here is ChatGPT working to generate this. Now, typically your product manager would have to write this for you, right? If you were working in a tech company that has that kind of structure. Otherwise, let's say this was a freelance client, what you would do is you would try to figure out with the client, ask them these questions, go through a discovery process, try to define what the problem statement is, and you would probably come up with this together. Maybe you taking the lead on what it should have, but the client kind of supplying you with the information that you can put here. Now, you as an individual can use ChatGPT as a creative partner, which means in this we're pretty much pretending like ChatGPT is our product manager. So it's you, this client, and now you have this product manager who kind of works for you, right? ChatGPT right here, who is helping you figure out all of this stuff. So let's see how good it is, and we'll try to refine it and work together. In general, I want you to treat this as another person on your team that you are kind of coordinating and collaborating with. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. This can actually make you a better collaborator when you do collaborate with real people, right? But let's try to understand this. Okay, aspiring attendee, experienced attendee, event organizer. Now, what I found very interesting about these personas, right? You saw the brief that I gave, is when we did actually a brainstorm for this in a live session for the cohort members, we went through this manually, right, without ChatGPT. And through that discovery process where we did a role play with the client, we figured it out. We realized that most people are experienced attendees, right? They've already attended Garba. It's a family thing they've been doing for years. But a suggestion that came out of that was that we probably need to do this for an aspiring attendee, right? We didn't really call it this. What we called it was somebody who's a first timer who might not know that, hey, I need to wear a certain dress code. I can't just show up in jeans. What do I need to bring along with me? Is food allowed? Should I be parking at the event? Right? Is it okay to take an Uber? Will there be traffic? Right? This is a huge event. There are 100,000 people who are going to be at this. Now, an experienced attendee might have done this already, so they already know that. But a first-time user experience, now that is something that we were anyway considering. So great to see that ChatGPT has suggested this. Event organizer will use the website to share information, promote the event. I'm not sure we'll design anything specific for the event organizer, but in general, yeah, it is a viable idea if we were using this event to communicate things with vendors, possible sponsors, put a kit for sponsorship, create specific sections for, do you want to sign up as a vendor, a food vendor, shopping vendor, depending on what they have at the event. You could put those sections in. So very interesting that I put it here. I'm not so sure if we'll use it though. Sections: event information, ticket sales, social media links, copy, tradition of Garba, right? So now you see, one very interesting thing that you might notice here is ChatGPT is not really trying to impress you by just giving you the most killer answer, but it is kind of doing the bare minimum based on what you put in, right? Now, you might see this brief and you'll be like, hey, that's way better than the briefs I write. I just say, do me this, right? But the reason I'm able to do this is I know what it's like to work with designers. I know what it's like to work with product managers, right? I know that in a team setting, the amount of context that you're able to share with somebody else who has to do the work, that context is useful, right? Telling all this stuff in advance, whoever I'm telling it to, I would have done the same thing if it was a person on Slack that I was talking to, and I probably would have shared a lot more. They would have asked me questions, right? And I expect them to ask me questions because they are kind of than treating me as the AI and giving me prompts, and I would give the answer. That is exactly how it works in a freelance client relationship. You as a freelancer, you're not just solving the problem, you're helping the client figure out, firstly, discover what the problem is, define what exactly are we solving. Then you kind of start designing. You figure out these different iterations. And at the end, you still have to deliver the outcome, right? You have to create this website they want, and it has to help their business with success, right? And you're a part of that process. Now, of course, AI can't do all of that. But if I know what I am doing, I can use AI almost as an intern or as a teammate who I can jam with, right? So now I've told it this stuff. And based on this, it's very specifically given me pretty much, I wouldn't say bare minimum, right? This is really good, but I need more, right? So what I'm going to say is, firstly, thanks. I like this as a first version. Some changes I'd like to see. For the sections, could you elaborate on each one along with the headline and copy for it? I need more detail on what the sections should be and more ideas on specific information to include. Now, typically, without AI, I would have to figure this out myself. And yeah, I would do it, right? What I would do is I would do my research process, trying to figure out, number one, what's the problem to be solved? Who am I designing this for? What are the potential issues people have? I would probably do some user interviews, right? I would do some client interviews, stakeholder interviews, right? Talking to the people I'm designing this for, talking to the people who are going to be using this. I would probably talk to some organizers, and I would try to get a lot of information, but then synthesize and pick the important things out. And then based on what I've picked out, I would then figure out how do I put it on the page with the appropriate priority, right? So the things that I was telling you about, like food counters, how does parking work at the event? How does the guest code thing work? Are there any other rules? Now, this is a discovery process that I would try to do with the client. I would also try to find other Garba websites that might have already solved these problems. So that gives me an idea of what I should be thinking about. But in this case, of course, this is just a demo that I want to show you. And of course, this probably is not a replacement for user interviews and following that traditional design process. But this is idea generation, right? This can give me a lot better things to think about and talk to with my client and my team. So let's just say here, for the sections, actually that's the first thing I want to see. Right, I'm going to ask it one at a time. I don't want to overwhelm it, because if I ask 3 things, it'll do a 30% job of each, right? 33% job of each. Versus I feel like if I ask one thing, it does that one thing 100%. That's kind of how it's like when you work with a human as well, to be honest. But let's brainstorm. Let's go a little further. And while it's doing this, I'm going to type my next prompt for the... Oh, wow. This is nice. Oh, wow. Okay, event. What were the sections? Event information, ticket sales. Now, I also need a hero section, right? The first fold that I will see when I land on this website. The hero section that people will see when they first land on the website. Write me 5 headline titles that catch the user's attention, along with a subtitle for each. In general, it should say something about this being India's largest Garba festival with over 100k attendees, organized by United. Okay, so here we've asked it for some hero section recommendations, right? Now, this is super interesting, right? I actually like some of these. Experience the magic of Garba at India's largest festival. This is dope. This is really fucking dope. If I had to pick one, I would probably go with... See, I'll give you my insight, okay? Join the festivities at Premier Garba event of the year. A little too wordy, right? Nobody calls them festivities. It's a little formal. Get your tickets now for the biggest Garba festival in India. I might use this for, let's say, the ad that I run, so the copy of that. But they've just landed on this page. I don't want to immediately give them a call to action, right? This is the call to action, right? This, I would probably use it for this ticket sale section. Get your tickets now. I would probably put this over here, right? Put a little bit of social proof. Dance the night away at most anticipated Garba. This is a good one as well, but I feel like maybe it's too long. But personally, what I might go with is this. Subtitles, I might go with one of these. Not so sure. But these are still good copies that I can use elsewhere in the page. One thing that you notice is, why did I say this? 100K attendees, right? Organized by this. This is just the client. 25th year in a row. Because in general, when you're creating a landing page, you want to show social proof. The goal of this is to get people to buy the tickets for the event. Now, keep in mind that when this happens during Navratri, there are hundreds or thousands of events like this. So it's a competitive space. For people to say, I'm not going to go for that and I'm going to come for this one, you have to convince people that this is the best. Now, you can, of course, say it's the best, most anticipated, ultimate, right? These are keywords that is signaling that. But you also need to show proof. And the way you would show proof, you can show it in a couple different ways. One would be through numbers, right? Talk about the fact that this is one of the biggest ones, right? You're showing some kind of social proof that everybody else loves it. They are coming for it. 25th year in a row, that's a reputational proof. You're saying this company has been doing this for a while. And I would probably also put a lot of images from the past events, right? To show that this is fun. Like, this event is actually very beautiful and planned. And what the other people look like, show them having fun. So while I might use these images, let's see, these images in some places, but I would not 100% rely on this, right? For example, even the hands are kind of weird here. Maybe that gets fixed in a different version. But I would use these in some places, but as much as possible, I would use images. Now, what we just went through right here is a creative brainstorm. I showed you how I might approach writing this. Can AI do this by itself? Maybe in some future it can, but at this point, you still need somebody to drive the outcome. The outcome at this point is you need to create that website. You need to actually talk to all these people. You need to actually go through these iterations, right? You need to do some research to understand the problem space, to understand the user needs. And in general, this is ideas, but you need somebody to execute on the ideas. And AI right now is not good enough to do that. You noticed as I was going through this, I talked about a lot of things that you still need to be a designer for. You still need to have design information to be able to get this level of productive output from this AI. So I hope that gave you a good insight into how this works. In general, AI is not the smartest person in the room, but it is definitely smarter than the dumbest person in the room. Will it replace your job? Yeah. If you're at the lowest common denominator of what your career is, absolutely. Right? It just made you redundant. But if you are able to figure out how do I actually do some of this real time, how can I actually have that model in my head through practice and repetition? If you can figure out how can I use this today to get an advantage? Keep in mind, we're still in the early stages of this as a technology, which means you still probably have a couple good years to figure out how you can take advantage of this by using it in your workflow. And in general, you become a better designer than somebody who does not use it. That's the opportunity here, right? A mindset that people have when they talk about job disruption is that they want one job that lasts them forever. I hate to be the one who breaks this to you, but that's not the world we live in anymore. I know I am a designer now. But I know I'm not going to do that forever, right? That's true even for the most experienced people in a field. And it's definitely true for you, right? You are going to be a designer right now. Maybe you do that for 5 to 10 years, but you then use these skills to figure something new. UI UX designer as a field became popular only last decade, right? Starting 2011, 2010 onwards, right? Before that, web designers was the shit. But web designers, a lot of them switched to UI UX design, and a lot of people entered directly into UI and UX working for mobile rather than trying to go the old route. Similarly, there's a very good chance 10 years from now we have new fields. Maybe we have something called an AI designer. Now, of course, I am not in the business of predictions. I'm in the business of helping you figure out what you can do today to set yourself apart, create amazing work, be productive, make a lot of money. And so, my final recommendation to you, get comfortable with these tools. You are now not working alone anymore. You now have a creative partner, right? Don't fight AI. Become friends with it.
Like, ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride